DreamWorks has given Dogman fans an absolutely fun and thrilling movie that, on top of everything else, is packed with fantastic Easter eggs.
Dogman!
Let's see if you caught all the amazing details hidden in the movie about the most fearless police dog ever.
Wait, aren't dogs colorblind?
The first Easter egg we're going to talk about already proves that the production team knew exactly what they were doing. Inside the police station where Dogman works, there's a wall with portraits of the city's most wanted criminals. Of course, Petey's face is up there, but you can also spot two other portraits on the wall, Dr. Scum and the Fair Fairy, two awesome villains from the book series. This means both of them officially exist in the movie universe and are already well-known villains. In other words, if Dogman gets a sequel, and let's be real, it probably will, the chances of these two showing up as antagonists are really high. It's impossible not to get excited. But this movie is packed with many more Easter eggs, and so far we've only talked about one. There's plenty more where that came from. So get ready, it's time for another Cinewave breakdown. During a heart-pounding chase scene between Petey and Officer Knight, there's a hilarious detail on the license plate of Petey's crocodile car. The plate's ID code reads 53W3R. This is a reference to the word sewer. It's a super clever joke since the vehicle looks like a crocodile and everyone has heard the urban legend about crocodiles living in the sewers. Not to mention, just moments earlier, Petey had emerged from a manhole with his car. Now let's talk about the license plate on Officer Knight's patrol car, which reads COPS with a Z instead of an S. The reason for this is that Dogman's world is so quirky that some words are spelled differently. Words that usually end in S are often replaced with a Z. And yes, the other police cars have the same plate. At the beginning of the movie, Officer Knight and Greg walk past a box labeled Box of Bees. But when the box gets knocked over, instead of a swarm of bees flying out, a bunch of letter B's spill onto the ground. That's because the plural of the letter B sounds exactly like bees. The real question is, why were those guys carrying a box full of bees? This already sets the tone for the movie, showing that the world of Dogman is absolutely bonkers. Speaking of letters, it seems that the floating letters that appear when characters say dramatic things actually exist in this universe as physical objects. We see this when Dogman starts howling, sending a wave of giant O's flying all the way to reporter Sarah Hadoff's house, where they hit her window and fall to the ground. This kind of explains why there was a box full of bees at the beginning of the movie. These letters are probably created when people make loud noises, then fall to the ground. So the government or companies must hire workers to collect these letters and use them for billboards or other signage. Still at the beginning of the movie, when we see several cars driving through the streets, there's a yellow van among the other vehicles. This van isn't just any regular vehicle, it's actually the news van that reporter Sarah Hadoff and her team used to get to crime scenes. You only realize this later on since the van keeps showing up throughout the movie. At this point, Sarah was probably trying to catch up with Petey, who was causing chaos all over the city. This isn't the only important element in the movie that makes an early appearance without much attention. The Super Science Center, the building with a giant chemical flask on its roof, plays a major role in the movie and also appears right at the beginning, long before we realize it's not just another random part of OK City. Now here's a question, would you want to live in OK, Dogman City? If yes, drop a comment below with #City. In a scene where Petey is studying Officer Knight and Greg the dog, we see a board filled with sketches of the two, along with notes detailing their strengths and weaknesses. Anyone who's read the books knows that these images are identical to the ones from the very first volume. This means the scene is practically a perfect recreation of the original. You can't deny that this movie is way more faithful to the source material than we could have expected, just making everything even funnier and more interesting. When Petey's bomb goes off, sending Officer Knight and Greg flying, they're immediately taken to a hospital, but not just any hospital. According to a sign, this is the best hospital in the city. That could just be advertising, but considering that Miss Nurse somehow pulled off a miracle by attaching Greg's head to Knight's body, the sign might actually be telling the truth. If you ever get into an accident, this might be the best place to go. Unless, of course, you don't want to end up like Dogman, a hybrid of two beings. Imagine becoming half horse, half man, or worse, half man, half lamp. You gotta consider these possibilities. To be identified, all police officers wear the same gold emblem on their uniforms, but this symbol pops up in a lot of unexpected places too. For example, on the chief's chair. That's not too surprising, but his chair is made up of wood, and instead of having a golden badge attached to it, the symbol is just drawn on. Honestly, it really seems like the chief just sketched the emblem onto his chair himself. It's not hard to imagine him doing that just to feel more official. But if you think the chair is the only odd place where the emblem appears, you're way off. You can spot it in some pretty unexpected places. It's also on one of the cushions on the chief's couch. Yep, the chief owns a police-themed pillow. Is this really what our tax money is going toward? I'd rather believe that the chief just bought it with his own money. Okay, let's stop talking about weird places where police emblems show up. Just kidding, it's also on Dogman's phone. Seriously, the cops even have official themed phones? Is this some kind of special device that gives them access to police radio frequencies? If that's the case, it makes sense. Or maybe they just get themed phone cases as part of their gear. Either way, I really hope DreamWorks starts selling Dogman themed phone cases. Petey is one of the smartest characters in the Dogman universe. He's a genius inventor and can escape prison whenever he wants, but sometimes he's not the brightest. Like in one scene where he's walking down the street and a vehicle passes in front of him. To disguise himself, he hides behind a newspaper, but the very newspaper he's holding has his face plastered on the front page. Anyone would recognize him instantly. And yet somehow, his disguise still works. Not to mention, his secret hideout has giant glowing signs basically announcing that it's his base. Maybe Petey is only considered a genius because everyone in the Dogman universe is just a little slow. Inside the Super Science Center's surveillance room, there's a trash can with a mini basketball hoop attached so the guards can pass the time tossing paper balls into it. But judging by the mess, it looks like the guards are terrible at this game. The floor around the trash can is covered in crumpled paper balls. Like, come on guys, at least pick them up after you miss. That's just disrespectful. Everyone knows trash goes in the trash can. But you know what's not trash? The subscribe button. Instead of throwing it away, you should click it. That way, you'll always get daily videos about your favorite animated shows and movies. In this scene, Dogman is in charge of monitoring the security cameras to prevent Flippy the fish from being stolen. However, to test his focus, the chief keeps trying to distract the police dog, and it works. What not everyone noticed is that when Dogman gets distracted by the chief and runs away, Petey appears on the cameras and quickly sneaks by. By the time Dogman looks back at the screens, the world's most evil cat has already vanished. Because of this, Petey only gets caught after successfully pulling off his heist. If it weren't for the chief, Dogman definitely would have stopped him before he could steal anything. At another point in the movie, the chief enters the secret underground hideout hidden inside his office drawer. But the walls of this hideout are kind of eerie because you can actually see dinosaur fossils embedded in them. That means this hideout is buried really deep underground. Honestly, if he decided to sell all those fossils, he'd probably make a fortune. But if this were Dogman's base, he'd never sell them. After all, he loves bones just like any other dog. Shortly after he was created, Lil Petey made a picture book about himself and his dad, Petey. Later on, he also draws a little comic for Dogman, proving how much he loves to draw. It's clear that this kitten has been passionate about drawing since the very beginning. And maybe, just maybe, this is a hint that he might start a comic-making club in Dogman 2, just like he does in the books. Because of Lil Petey's love for art, Dogman's house changes a lot once the two start living together. The walls become covered with all kinds of drawings, characters, fun doodles, and illustrations of the little kitten and the police dog together. Petey only decides to build ADHD after regretting abandoning his clone, and son, on the streets. But he had actually planned to build the machine long before that. In fact, just a few minutes after Lil Petey is created by the cloning machine, you can spot a chalkboard in the background of Petey's base. The sketches on that chalkboard seem to be the blueprint for ADHD, a project that Petey probably shelved long before actually starting it. In one scene, Petey uses one of his many high-tech vehicles to blow up a cardboard cutout of Dogman. And since cardboard cutouts are flat, the movie took this opportunity to reference the books, making it look just like Dogman's 2D illustration style. Another perfect tribute! That's it for the Easter eggs, but we've got 2 other awesome videos on your screen so you can keep having fun. Thanks for watching, and see you next time!